it's a lot better if you're coming in now, because you're going to get a lot more.
Asad, great to have you on the Sales and Sports podcast and great to catch up. Take us back to day one before you were in tech sales. How did you break into the industry? But even before that, what were you studying at university and what was your journey?
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me on, Jack. I really appreciate it. So, kind of the start of everything was uh went into university, and I was studying kind of a normal business degree. So I was studying specifically retail and services management. I didn't really have an idea of what I wanted to do. At the time I was working in luxury retail sales.
Mm,
So I had an idea of maybe going into a management position in the future. However, it didn't seem fulfilling enough for me. I wanted to be part of something a bit bigger. So my main goal was okay, and it was about year three of uni, and I was like, what do I really want to do? So my sister actually got me in touch with one of her friends who was an SDR at Google. And he really kind of sold me onto sales. He was telling me about the perks of it. He's telling me how it's really driven at your own result. Like your results are driven by yourself.
mm,
Um, and there's a lot of opportunities to like learn and grow into other careers as well.
mm,
So my main goal was to kind of get a better understanding of sales, learn a bit more. So during uni, I was doing like a few small courses on the side to learn a bit more about like consultative selling and SaaS, how the whole industry is. Um, Turns out I did not learn enough because it's such a big industry.
yeah.
But yeah, so it took me a while after finishing up uni to land a SaaS role. Um, Mainly it was I didn't understand how the interview prep goes, didn't really fully understand the industry. There's a lot that goes into a SaaS company, and there's a lot that goes into selling, software products
Mm,
over, the phone or over meetings online. So I got landed a role in a smaller company, and it was a great starting point where I did a bit of inbound sales and outbound sales. So I'd be taking out inbound calls that already had buyer intent, and we were also kind of starting off with outbound. So there wasn't a real strategy. It was more just a kind of testing run through to get outbound into the role that we were in already. Then after about maybe 6 months in that company, I wasn't feeling too fulfilled with the role. I wanted to try for like an outbound role. And again, I wasn't too aware of how specific certain interview questions will need like answers for,
mm,
what I should be preparing interviews for, the exact industry, how to, sell software efficiently. I feel like I still wasn't comfortable or ready to sell it for, let's say, a much larger company.
mm, mm.
So I was applying to other roles, and I came across Entr Tech's posting on LinkedIn, and I decided, you know what, let me just send in the application, see how it is. It sounded like a very interesting opportunity. I wasn't too sure of it at first. It sounded like I was going into a training program, but I was like, this might be a really good opportunity. However, it was a opportunity to progress in my career into an outbound role,
Mhm.
specifically in Barcelona.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that would have been nice. But we went to loads of training. So when it came to Entr Tech, I really got a full understanding of how SaaS actually is, how to sell over the phone, how to position software, and position a company to provide value for a business. So I did a lot of interviews with Jack, and there was some other people as well going
Mm,
for the role.
yeah.
Um, Really, really interesting stuff that I learned. When it came to like, let's say, how I position an interview question, how I show my strengths in sales, how I talk about my weaknesses specifically, and uh, turn that into a strength, or turn that into a talking point on how I can, effectively take criticism, for example. Um,
Yeah.
it was able to kind of open up a lot more avenues in how I was speaking to like hiring managers, for example.
Yeah, I remember we did a lot of work on the interview side of things. I could even see like a lot of people that come through Entr Tech, like their interview preparation, and that actually becomes a skill they can take anywhere. I could even see afterwards you're like, wow, like now I could pretty much ace whatever I want to ace. And funnily enough, you didn't end up going to Barcelona, which funnily probably worked out quite well. is where you are today. We'll get into that. But just hearing your story, for those that are listening, want to know how transferable your retail sales skills and opportunities there whilst you're studying helped getting the first role as well. Because there's so many career switches that get into tech sales, and so many people that work in hospitality or retail and have great fundamental skills, but don't realize there's this opportunity to work in technology. So, yeah, not to go off piece, but I kind of want to go back there. Like, how fundamental was working in closed stores, and how was that like approaching customers? And were you always pretty, outgoing or open to it? Did you have to sort of learn as a student? Because sometimes when you're a student and you're working, it's quite hard as well because your first proper job. So talk to me about that and the transferable skills you learned.
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So if I'm being completely honest, I'd say about retail to tech sales for me, anyways. I'd say about 60% was transferable, if not 50. Um, there is uh there, I feel like when it comes to like luxury retail sales, you have customers coming in. There's already buyer's intent. You can show them the product. For the most part, we weren't really developing much sales skills. It was great to develop like communication. It was great to develop a sense of like creating trust for the customer to come to you again and again and again. However, when it comes to like SaaS, for example, compared to retail, there's a lot more what I would say kind of psychology involved. A SaaS customer is not going to see you in person. A SaaS customer is not really going to care. About the whole checking out process,
Mm,
like you're being there in front of them, having a chat with them. They're a lot more direct and forward. However, when I was in retail, they were a lot more kind of laid back. They were uh, easy to talk to, easy to have a conversation with.
yeah,
So going into, let's say, a larger company, 100%, I feel like it would be, you would need to have some sort of SaaS training done. You would need to possibly have experience in another company. However, I think the main thing is to show that you can physically do the job that they're asking.
mm,
So, yeah, it's a good question, but I don't think it's too transferable
yeah.
depending on uh, where specifically you're trying to land.
100%, 100%. And you've landed at probably one of the largest organizations in the world, potentially. And yeah, would love to know, how's it working at HubSpot? What's it like in Dublin? There's a massive tech scene here, a lot of opportunities. People listening from the UK, it's almost taking over London as one of the HQs for Europe. So yeah, how is it working at such a large organization? I know we're speaking up before we recorded, but what's the main differences from your first company or first experience in tech sales to working at such a large organization?
Yeah, cool. So that's it. Again, very interesting question. So, how it feels to work in a large company, HubSpot specifically, it's amazing. It's a great company. The culture is really good. I could tell this from the hiring process. They do focus on culture and fit a lot,
Mm,
and they also remind you to do it as well. Because a great thing that I was told is you're not just you know assessing your fit for the or they're not assessing the fit for you for their company, but you also should be assessing the fit of yourself for their company. See
yeah,
if that's a company you want to work in long term. Um, yeah, big tech. It has so many open doors, so many opportunities to go into. And sales is a great way to start in tech. Uh, Specifically, you learn a lot of like the consultative side. You work with so many different people in the company. You're going to so many different events. You just make such a big network of people um, outside of let's say your base level team. So
for
I
sure.
know I know account executives, I know sales specialists. Then on the other side of things, I know customer success managers, I know contracts team members. So it's so many avenues and open doors that you go into. The
Yeah.
second question you were kind of touching on there. So what would be like the main differences or what kind of changes I've seen between, let's say, working in a little bit of a smaller company to a much larger SaaS company? Um, Main differences I can see is kind of the sales structure and strategy that's already in place. Big companies, they've been doing it for a while now. They've already spent so much money in their enablement and the training that's given. Um, as well as that, like you're getting a lot of benefits, not just in salary, you're also getting it in like, let's say, HubSpot is a great benefit is where I can work remotely. So, I kind of
Nice.
choose when I can go into the office or not.
That's great.
So when you're in the office as well, there's huge amount of perks. You're firstly in a massive office. There's, you know, PlayStations.
Yeah.
I never really play it because you
Mhm.
don't really get the time to, but
Yeah.
you have the free lunches, you have free kind of snacks here and there. So there's a lot of
Nice.
benefits to go into the office. And then as well as that, the environment in the office has a lot of things to do with like, the other people that you're working with. So
Mm.
it's very, very nice to be fair.
Yeah.
In terms of the difference specifically between a smaller SaaS company and a bigger SaaS company, the smaller one, you would not have that huge office culture.
Mm.
Like I was on a hybrid contract in a smaller company. However, you're going in and some days there'd be three people in the whole office.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you're sitting there, you don't really have many people to talk to, especially during like a quieter season, during like summertime.
Yeah.
Um, and you just feel a bit
It's a
like,
bit flat.
yeah, it's a bit flat. You don't have the
Yeah.
energy, especially in a role that requires so much hype and energy. And,
Yeah.
you need to be on a very, very, like a very, very high buzz,
Yeah.
for
The
example.
frequency, you got to be going there and
Yeah,
bringing the energy, and it's easier if you've got people around you doing the same, right? You can
exactly.
almost match it. What was the SDR team like, or BDR team like when you joined? I guess tell us the specifics about your role, and was there like training and onboarding included as part of that sort of process?
Yeah. So, in terms of onboarding training, yeah, we did have a month of onboarding and training. Now, one thing I can say is we've been undergoing a lot of training because the organization is like, it's a bit more sales focused for sure now compared to how it was. So the team is a lot more smaller, but we're becoming a lot more sales intensive. People are moving on to other roles, but we haven't really been opening up to adding more people until um, we get a full feel of what's actually happening. So in terms of like changes, there's a lot of changes happening, but it's a lot better if you're coming in now because you're going to get a lot more opportunity to learn how to sell. You're going to get a lot more opportunities to move into like other areas with like learning how to consultatively sell in such
Mm,
a deep level.
amazing. And you mentioned, obviously, when I was speaking to Toby yesterday, for example, he was saying when he joined, there's so many highs, but also there are challenges when you get into the role, and you're still learning new processes, new software. Like how was that, I guess, in terms of learning and development, and what challenges, if any, did you have getting into, yeah, the new role?
Yeah. So in terms of learning and development, there's consistent trainings you can do. Either, we are told to do it to ensure we're up to date with like product sales, enablement, how we sell specifically or how we like learn. In terms of the, sorry, what was the second part of that? You said something.
Challenges, yeah,
Challenges.
challenges, yeah.
Challenges is a really interesting one to be fair because I struggled for sure at the start of the journey. I was struggling to hit like certain targets. I was struggling to hit certain metrics. The company was undergoing a few metric changes as well at the time. However, my manager was very, very good. She was consistently teaching me certain different ways. I was going back over even some of the Entr Tech stuff that I was going through.
Mhm.
So just making sure that I was trying to keep up to date with as much sales knowledge as I could. The lows can be low, but you just have to stick through it, and it'll end up being really, really good at the end.
Nice. Okay, awesome. And in terms of like the team, is it, you know, different nationalities? Because I think a lot of international people come to Dublin because obviously, sadly, the UK had Brexit, so all the Europeans, it's harder for them to work there, and a lot of tech companies now hire their, global HQ or European HQ out of Dublin. So even seeing like open roles, they get a lot of Spanish speakers, Dutch, German. A lot of SDRs and BDRs sort of congregate in Dublin. Do you see that? Is that quite a normal thing to have different folk? And like, what's the average, I guess, age of the SDR BDR team? Is it quite young? Is it different levels? So yeah, talk to me about your teammates and the mix up there.
That is actually a great question because this is an interesting one.
Mhm,
So when I first started, I was on the English Spanish team.
mhm,
So it was kind of everyone based in UKI. However, some were like Spanish speakers who would deal with like kind of Spanish customers coming in. We wouldn't have to deal with them because we'd be mainly on the English workflow.
Yeah.
However, that has already undergone a change, and now we're working with a German team, and
Hmm.
most of them are based in Germany. So the team has undergone changes as well.
Right.
However, as you were saying, there is a lot of diversity within HubSpot. Like, it's one thing that they do focus on, and they do it really well.
Hmm.
Making sure that there's a diverse workspace. You're going to meet so many different people from so many different backgrounds, and
Yeah.
you learn so much just about like the world in general, which
Yeah.
it kind of gives you more of a sense of like, you know, community. It gives you a sense of like uh
Perspective.
companionship,
Yeah. Yeah.
perspective. So it
Yeah.
does really help even within the job
Yeah.
to be having so many different people to talk to about so many different things.
Yeah. And you mentioned before we recorded that your role was, more of an inbound role. How do you find that? And I guess people probably won't know what an inbound SDR is or BDR. And then where do you see your role evolving in terms of your career? Where do you see yourself
Yeah.
progressing in the next couple of years? But yeah, talk to us about the role today.
Yeah. So in terms of like an inbound SDR, what I'd mainly do is I'd be dealing with like a workflow that is inbound. So I already have the buyer intent. The buyer's coming in, they want to know what's HubSpot about. So I'm not necessarily a gatekeeper, but I need to ask good qualifying questions to either qualify them for a higher tier of product and pass them on to the appropriate person, or I would be qualifying them for a lower tier of product or a individual or smaller product in general,
Yeah.
and I'll be able to close that deal as well. So yeah, I do focus on closing deals. I'll be focused on qualifying them, and then as well as that, if let's say HubSpot is not a fit for them, and I don't see that there's potential for HubSpot to grow their business, or they don't really need it, I can also disqualify them too. So it does take kind of the stress and the pressure of the outbound call where
Yeah.
someone can just end the call really quickly. I already have that buyer intent.
Hmm.
Now it's just really, really good question asking, making sure I don't miss any kind of key information that they're providing me through, the intent that they've given me.
Nice. So there's no sort of cold calling. It's all sort of inbound.
Yeah, that's
Nice.
exactly it. The only time like you can technically cold call is, let's say someone, so we deal kind of like on chats and phones. If somebody decides to ghost a chat, I can
Yeah.
reach out to them at certain moments, but it's not really something that's
Yeah.
required.
It's still like a warm call in a way. It sounds
Yes,
like a great role.
it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
It's very, very good.
And
Yeah.
you close them as well.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
when it comes to like smaller starter
Nice.
deals, then I would end up closing that deal as
Wow.
well. So I'll be
That's so cool.
providing them through or walking them through checkout processes.
Yeah.
Once I know that that's a good fit for them,
Already.
and then selling that.
And what's like the biggest deal that you've seen come through that's maybe been passed on or that's closed? What, is it in there?
Yeah, so I don't know if I can give an exact amount, but in terms of like the biggest one I've passed through, it would be upwards of, like, we're talking about
Yeah.
MMR, so monthly recurring revenue, upwards of like 50K.
50K a month.
Yeah,
So you
so
times that by 12, that's over 500,000.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
Wow.
it's
So it's
huge.
big,
So
big stuff. So it's an
yeah,
important job.
I think it was
Yeah.
anyways. I'm not 100% sure
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
works.
So
Whatever. Yeah,
it's an important job.
it's yeah. Like you can, to be fair, like when I started in the role, the BDRs do
Mm.
bring in the most amount of cash for sure, the BDRs and AEs, but sometimes the business development associates
Yeah.
can really hit home with how much they're bringing.
Do well. And you get a commission on some of the things
We
that close?
don't. So that's a good question. Actually, we don't get commission because that's inbound.
Yeah.
The BDRs would. However, we would get like incentives to, let's say, close more deals, book more deals that would convert into meetings.
Yeah.
And just how much the meeting outcome may be.
Yeah. So there's a sort of a bonus
Yeah.
incentive. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Exactly.
Nice. Cool. And then I know we've just spoke about it briefly before we got on. Where do you see your career going and role evolving? Because there's so many. The SDR role is such a great way to get into the industry, and you can move. Once you're in tech or in a great company, you can move into customer success, products, marketing, or solutions engineering, pre-sales. Where do you see yourself going? Or do you want to stay in sales?
Yeah. So that's a good question as well. So in terms of the role that I'm in now and where I'd want to go to, I've decided not to go towards, like, let's say, the outbound role, because so many doors are open to me at the moment. So I had
Mm,
a lot of time to see what there is. I had a lot of people to chat to, and get an idea of what role I'd want to go into. I think for me, it'd be similar to like pre-sales or solution engineer,
yeah,
where I can provide more value add, but it's not strictly just selling.
yeah,
However, I like the part of discovery. I like consulting
yeah,
customers. So that's definitely something I want to keep in the role. So yeah,
yeah.
definitely towards that side of
Yeah,
things.
it's so funny because Toby, who was on before, he's a solutions engineer at Salesforce, but he said it's such a great role because you still have that team element. You're still connecting with account executives, sales directors, SDRs, even day to day. But there's also the scope to get a bit more technical and be more consultative. And the space of the tech industry, how it's growing so quickly, it's such a key role, like to have that consultative but also technical element, which is great. So
Yeah.
it sounds like such a great role to be in.
100%. To be
Yeah.
fair, like it just it has really stuck out to me from speaking with, like, let's say, BDRs, speaking with small biz AEs, speaking with solution engineers and customer success managers. Definitely this role has stuck out to me. I just, providing that value to not only the customer but also your
Mm,
team. So the
yeah.
AEs will need you as well. So I
Yeah.
want to be that kind of point of contact for both sides.
Nice. Awesome. And just to wrap it up, I guess, like we always say to everyone, what's your top 3 bits of advice for someone who's listening in or watching and wants to break into tech sales? I think a lot of key takeaways, we can bring in, but what advice would you have?
Yeah, so top three advice that I would go for in tech sales. The first one would have to be get on Entr Tech.
Yeah.
um,
Say that.
for sure, for sure. Definitely some training platform, some mentor to provide you really good insight onto, firstly, how to ace your interviews, and secondly, how to ace the actual position itself.
Mm,
There's a lot that goes into it. Second piece of advice is just accept the rejections. Really
mm,
get comfortable with people saying no. Get comfortable with asking questions to people who say no to you, and just be super, super, curious when
yeah.
people are saying no. And then the third bit of advice I would give is just make sure you have a really strong support system around you,
Mm,
especially in a role where you're going to get hit with so many curse words and stuff like that,
good
or
stuff.
people are going to not be, they're not going to be very happy with a salesperson,
Yeah.
even talking to them in an inbound way, they're not happy sometimes. So
Yeah.
you need to have people around you, make sure you have hobbies as well,
Yeah.
to just relax, ease your mind, and yeah, just you need to enjoy your life as well.
It's
So
true. That's great.
100%.
That's a really good advice, actually. Smashed it. Awesome, mate. Well, thanks so much for coming on. Where's the
Thanks for
best
having
place
me.
for people to reach out? Is it LinkedIn?
Yeah, I'd say
Yeah.
reach out to me on LinkedIn, send me a message. I'm always open for a chat or a conversation if you're ever interested in tech sales or even about HubSpot. Yeah,
Good
I'd
stuff.
love to
Yeah.
have, more conversations about it. So
Amazing. Legend. Well, looking forward to catching up in a few years' time.
perfect, perfect, will do.
Good stuff.